7 minutes to 6 now. Now, yesterday we spoke a lot, didn't we, about the 2011 census. We got lots of additional detail on the figures there. And in particular, we spoke about the Welsh language. Well, we're still wading through it. Well, not me or Gareth, actually. Our colleagues are still wading through it.
We did enough of that yesterday, didn't we?
Exactly. Lots more information still coming out. And in particular, it may or it may not surprise you to learn that step families are the fastest growing type of family in the UK. So what does that say then about our changing society? And how does a step family operate differently to the traditional nuclear family? Well, Mal Fletcher is a social commentator, and Dr. Wednesday Martin is a stepmother, and she wrote a book about giving advice to step parents. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening, Nellie and Mal.
Mal, to start with you, I mean, I think probably everyone, if they think through their friends, their families, this probably isn't that much of a surprise. We all know people who are becoming stepmums and stepdads.
Yes, I guess we do, and many of them raise brilliant families. You know, they do a fantastic job in offering support to their children. The figures that I've read reflect something of a mixed message, though, Nellie. On the one hand, to a point, they show a changing face of Britain where families are concerned. For example, they show the growing edge of step families is among adults aged under 40. So it may be that some of the changes we see in family structure is linked to generational change. But on the other hand, the figures also seem to suggest that what you call the nuclear family is still hugely important to British people. Even in step families, in this census figures, most of the children end up with mum. So, you know, some things don't change along the way.
No, and you say that so that the children perhaps stay with their mums, but then obviously it's the access to the dads, but then the dads might end up marrying someone else who also has kids. It can get quite complicated.
It can, and I think one of the things this throws up is the importance of us having some sort of ongoing discussion in the community about how we can support and encourage stable families of whatever kind they are, because as the number of step families grows, it's not hard to imagine that we might also see an increase in the number of kids who experience more than one major shift in their family structure during their childhood. And according to many studies, that has real ramifications on their development.
Dr. Wednesday Martin, Mal talks about support there. Is that perhaps in some ways why you wrote this book? You're a stepmother. Did you feel you had support?
It's absolutely one of the reasons I wrote the book. I feel that we need to come up with educated messages to support step families because 1 in 3 Britons is in a step family. And Mal made a very interesting point, which suggests that step families are actually radically undercounted in the UK. He talked about different stages of development and step family development. Sometimes stepchildren might be 4 years old, but as was the case with the Prince of Wales and Camilla, his wife, they each brought adult stepchildren to the mix, and it's highly unlikely that they were captured by a census, or, for example, gay step families would be captured by a census, or step families formed by cohabiting versus marriage. So while the nuclear family is still very important in Britain, we can only guess, by an educated guess, that the number of step families is still very low by our official estimates, and that there are hundreds of thousands more families out there that are undercounted and in need of messages of support.
Yeah, and as you said, it sort of affects every part of society, really. I suppose the difficulty for anyone who may find themselves as a new step parent is you can't be the mum or the dad. You know, you don't have that authority, but equally, you don't want to be sort of the friend. You have to have some sort of authority in the relationship.
I think, if you don't mind my saying this, that Mal made a great point when he said that the first family, or what we call the nuclear family or the natural family sometimes in Great Britain, is incredibly important. And what tends to happen is that step families tend to be judged by a first family standard. And as Mal pointed out, step families have very real differences from real families. For example, they span numerous households. I have a stepchild who's 28 and a son who's 5, young enough to be her son. Step families involve a deceased or a divorced parent, so they're very, very different from first families. So as Mal points out, we do need to craft these messages of support and understanding that really factor in that step families are not first families, and they shouldn't be judged by that standard. We shouldn't feel that we're an unsuccessful step family if we don't feel just like a first family. It's actually a measure of our success if our children still feel that they're being very faithful to their mom and dad and able to like us.
And Mal, just briefly, we get all this information from the census, and it's fascinating, isn't it? And figures about unmarried couples, and as we say, how Britain is changing. Looking forward, perhaps in the next census, do you think we'll still be talking about step families, or will things have changed again?
Well, it depends on a lot of things. I think it depends in part on whether we confuse progress with progressivism. You know, progress is a positive engagement with change, and we all want it. Progressivism is where we want change for change's sake, and that's not necessarily a healthy state. So a lot depends on now, as we go forward, we need to recognise that step families do require special skills. It's absolutely true, and they may well be undercounted. At the same time, we need to continue to value what has held us together for so long, and continue, as we go forward, to hold on to nuclear family as well.
Okay, thanks to both of you. That was Mal Fletcher and Dr. Wensley Martin there.